Hey there, and welcome back to Timberborn. I've got one goal for this episode, and that is to unlock explosives. To give you a quick recap, we are on cycle 4. We've got a very basic settlement, we've got some good supply of food coming in, we've got a healthy supply of trees, and we've started to stockpile a good amount of water for the first bad tide. We also have a very solid supply of water in the upper river here, which is going to work perfectly for surviving the droughts, and the last drought we had no problem with. Unfortunately, this map really doesn't have a good option for diverting the bad tide when it comes. So what I'm thinking is we need some TNT to make room. And that brings me back to the goal for this episode. I want to be able to build an explosive factory so we can start producing that TNT. Now, unfortunately, there's a few things that we need to unlock before we can actually build TNT. First off, TNT requires bad water to produce. We don't have a bad water pump yet. Second, it requires metal blocks that we don't have yet. And to get metal blocks, we're going to need scavengers to start picking up ruins and a smelter to produce that. Let's go ahead and get started. The first thing I'm thinking about is where to place the TNT. Now, the TNT for production is going to need a healthy supply of bad water. Our only two sources of bad water reliably are this flow over to the left, and on the other side of the lake, we've got this part. Now, given that the TNT is ultimately going to be used upriver, I'm thinking of starting over here. The second element of this is scrap, where to get scrap so we can smelt. Now, I think long term, this is where we're going to go because we've got an underground ruin, which we can keep recycling and getting more from. And it's also going to be relatively close to here. So if we're having power production via windmills, we can use that to basically smelt relatively close to where we're getting things. Early on, though, I'm thinking I might just rip this out because I ultimately like these ruins gone anyway. So I'm thinking we can just salvage these, cart them over to up here where we're going to smelt them for long term, and that will just get rid of those ruins. Let's get that first part started then. Let's start getting some of that scrap in, because I think we're going to need that relatively quick. Throw in a couple scavengers, and for now I don't want them to have to haul very far. I'm just going to build a storage locally, and then later when we're ready to move everything, we could just have the beavers carried over all at once. Next element will be the bad water pump. We won't be able to build this until we have the metal coming in, but we can at least plan it. Now, if it's going to be over here, we're going to need to get a road up there and then a road over there. That's looking good for now. Ultimately, when we have the TNT out, I'll probably blow this up just so it's a nice and even turn, because that's bothering me. Second thing we could do is also make a road from here over here, because I'm imagining that's where the scrap is going to come through, so they don't have to come all the way back down to town. Since this is a nice run, I like to just kind of continue this road all the way so it's straight. Let's go ahead and tear those out, and then I'm just going to build the road straight across. Okay, that's looking good. Now let's figure out where to put that smelter. So we'll unlock the smelter at 300. Smelter is going to take scrap, some logs, and go ahead and produce a metal block. And it's going to need a good amount of power. So there's two parts involved here. We don't really have reliable water power up in here. So we're going to need windmills to power it. And I'm thinking the small windmills, and we just have enough science to unlock those two. So we've got a small windmill, and this should produce a variable amount of power, but up to 150. Now, what I'd like to do, I'm thinking is if I could stack a couple of these together and then have them come down and connect to the smelter. And we can have a little bit of space for windmills up in here. Fortunately, we're going to need a little bit more stairs just to get up there. For the windmills, what I'm thinking, I'd like to kind of stack them in here once we get up. Like that. Now, the only downside with that is it's kind of tough to build these because you'd have to get the beavers in there. One of the things I usually like to do is build my windmills on like stilts so you can still access things underneath them. But we don't need all these windmills for right now. This is just kind of like an early plan. So let's go ahead and delete a bunch of these, and we can probably get started with these two. Should be enough for what we need. And then we can always add the others if we need it. And I'm also going to put that on the first kind of stilt. While we're waiting on that, let's take a look also to see how our bad type preparations are going. Now, last episode, what I set up was more storage of water to get through a potential bad tide. We have our first one here, which is now almost filled. And I have a feeling that our main limiting factor is going to be gears for this. Out of 20, we're almost to our next medium tank, which is good, but it's probably coming down to just one person working on gears. Now, it looks like we got our scavenger flag set up. Since I really do want that TNT, I'm going to boost one of these scavenger flags up in priority just to get at least one beaver out here doing the work. Excellent. We've got the first one coming in. And we're making progress on our roads. Probably planks is our limiting factor. I'm also noticing that our food supply is about stagnant, and I'd really like to change that because I want the population to continue to grow so we can have more workers, obviously, but I don't want to do that if it's going to risk our food supply and our food stockpile. We could use this area. I'm thinking we might do that. And I want to minimize the amount of space lost to putting the building on. So I think I might just put a few more platforms here, and then we can go ahead and put the farmhouse on top of that. And while we're here, we'll go ahead and finish that road. Plan on more potatoes. That's a pretty good staple for right now. Okay, we've got a good build queue going on now. We've got a little bit of the road finishing, we've got a new farmhouse planned, and we've got our ultimate plan still coming up, which is the dynamite. So smelting is first, and we just need to get those last two stairs up, then we can get our power and start smelting over in here. And it looks like they can go ahead and reach that. So let's see, where are we going to put this smelter? Leaving space for those windmills if we're to expand them more. I think we could just ultimately stack them this way, and then have storage here for the input and output. So let's just wait for those lumberjacks to go ahead and tear these out, and we can put it down. It's going to take a little bit to build anyways, because it needs gears, and gears are a big limiting factor for our main water supply too. Ooh, second medium tank finished. And start filling that with more water. And we can unpause construction of the last one. Does still highlight our limit of gears though. I'm wondering if I should throw in another gear workshop just to kind of fill up it being the limiting factor, it being the bottleneck. I think yes. Let's just wait for the build queue to flush out because we have so much other stuff kind of queued up for that farmland. I'd like to finish that first, then we can put another gear in here, and then probably another water wheel just to keep up with the demand. To make room for it though, we've got a lot of logs. Let's just put one levee in there. And how are we looking at our smelter location? We've got our windmill. It looks like that finally finished. We got the raised platform. This little logger, he's been very busy getting most of the stuff out of here, so we've just got stumps. I think we're good to go ahead and put down the smelter. We'll keep it really simple for right now. Put a road there, and we'll go ahead and connect some of the power down. Unlock some science so we can go ahead and get the vertical transfer shaft. Go ahead and put that right in. Now we might actually have to build another one of these. And this one you can see it's variable. For right now we're only getting 57. So if we want it to consistently work, let's go ahead and add another windmill. And while we're at it, I'll add another one over here too. And just so there's not contention over gears, I'm gonna make this last medium tank highest priority, just to get it done first. They've got their work cut out for them anyways, getting all the scrap metal and planks moved over. And thankfully, this little guy over here, he has been busy and he's still been collecting scrap metal. So we have just enough, or more than enough, to go ahead and build that first smelter. I can see that the other build queues are slowly filling out, so we've got our second farm coming in. And a little bit of time on the road, but that's not really super critical right now. There is our last medium tank finished. Love to see that. Let's go ahead and start popping that with water. And this is great because we no longer need to send gears over to this pump. Instead, we can start sending the gears over to the smelter here, which is going to use a lot at 20. Overall, things are looking pretty good right now. We've got a very good supply of lumber coming in, plus a lot of new trees already stockpiled or in different states of growth. We've got our second farm, or our third farm over here producing potatoes. That's going to allow us to have even greater amount of food. The only thing I'm seeing holding us back right now is we don't have a pipeline of new children coming in. And we've got a nice supply of food. I'm thinking we can put a few more houses in there just to help with some of the building, especially as we have this new production facilities coming online. I'm going to move these inventor locations over a little bit, I think. I'm going to rotate and mirror this house and then put a double lodge like that. 3 and 6, so that should give us 9 other people who live here. And these are all relatively cheap. They're just logs, and thankfully we have an abundance of logs at this point. It looks like we got the first drought of this session coming through. Honestly, I'm not too worried about it this time. We still have a very good supply of water in here, and it's not a bad tide. I think we'll be fine. Let's check in on our smelter again. Gears, just 6 more to go. Not that many. Scrap metal, I can see they're starting to cart it over, so that's great. We can also start taking a look at the bad water plan. Bad water pump takes 250 science. We can't build it yet until we have smelting, but let's just kind of come up with a plan for it. For the first one, I think I'm just going to place it here. What I can do, however, is I can make a storage location for the smelted stuff, because at this point, all we're waiting for is 7 more pieces of scrap metal, and that's going to be here before you know it. Let me just throw this in an out-of-the-way location. And all we need now is that scrap metal. I can see the workers busily delivering it. Here come the final 3 pieces of scrap. There is our smelter. Excellent. Let's go ahead and make that a high priority. We want somebody on there. Now, this is going to be a little bit inefficient right in the beginning, at least, because we need to carry logs here. We don't have a good log supply. Now, we'll see how inefficient it is in the beginning. If we find that Tangent here is hauling stuff all the way, we'll bring in, I think, some haulers and just make sure he's always stockpile with what he needs. And the drought begins. I really don't think it's a risk for us this time, so I'm just going to kind of ignore it and keep laser focused on our TNT. So next step in our production chain is we really need this bad water pump produced. It's going to need 5 metal blocks, which honestly isn't going to take a lot of time. We've already got the first one being produced now. Now, I can see, unfortunately, that our smelter, he's spending a lot of time just hauling stuff. He is going all the way over here to get this scrap metal, and he's basically walking all the way across the map to deliver it. So that's really unfortunate. I think it would be good to have some of those haulers in there just to increase the production. I think we're going to have to do it. We're going to have to go ahead and get some haulers. We can turn off some other buildings. It just needs to make this poor guy's life a little bit easier. We'll go ahead and put a hauling post there, and I think give it a little bit higher construction time and priority for building, just so we save this poor guy from having to walk like 5 kilometers every day with metal. Okay, and I don't think we need the full amount of people there. Let's just keep 3 people stocked on that. And here they go, off to business. Let's go ahead and pick up that scrap to save that guy. And they delivered it to the wrong location. Oh no. Yeah, I think there's a way that we can do that. We can make something, I think, a higher priority. So I could say, prioritize the smelter by the haulers. There we go. That's much better. Now they're taking it to the right place. Perfect. Now I am seeing him just stay there and work all the time. And this is perfect because with him there all the time, I think that is the last piece of metal we need for our first bad water pump. Excellent. And we'll keep this one high priority too. Sligo, go ahead and take care of it. I think he needs a new name. His new name is Slimo, as he deals with the slime. Now with all those buildings built, let's go ahead and put what we ultimately set up to do. We wanted that explosives factory. Cost 400 science. We have 400 science. Let's build it. Now we only need 30 gear and 30 metal blocks. For now, I'm just going to place it adjacent. I think that's fine. It is going to need more power though, because this is barely powering all of this. Especially, you can see it's kind of sporadic. So let's go ahead and put a few more windmills in the production queue. There we go. I'm going to mark these higher priority for the builders to finish. The end of the drought. Let's go ahead and just lower the floodgates. We had absolutely no trouble at that one. But still, we have our main objective, which is that explosive factory. Now, the only thing we're really limited on is gears and metal blocks. We've got metal blocks here with a little bit of sporadic windmill power coming into it, but it does have supplies. And with the drought ending, our gear production should come back online. And we've got 2 beavers on that full time, so that's not going to be a problem. Also, we got through that with a giant supply of water. All 3 of our medium tanks are full, so that's good for the bad tide. Our food is pretty well stockpiled. We've got a full supply of unbaked potatoes and 350 of baked potatoes. In fact, I'm guessing that this place is basically not really doing anything because there's no place to put the potatoes that are ready. We may want to put another extra stockpile of unbaked potatoes here. We can't really use this space anyway, so I'm going to do just that. Throw in some double platforms, throw in regular platforms, And then we'll go ahead and throw a medium warehouse here. Then these guys don't have to walk very far. We don't have to use all the haulers to carry them all the way back to town. Now with all our food in good shape, I think we have space for another house in here too. Let's just throw in, I think we're going to go for a full triple lodge this time. And I'm going to leave a little bit of a green belt for decorations out front afterwards. And that's looking good. How are we doing on the explosives factory? About 50% done. Again, we are limited on gears and metal. Luckily, he doesn't have to walk far to deliver it. And he is fully stocked thanks to the help of those haulers, so he can just keep on working. And it looks like the explosives factory has everything it needs except for metal blocks now. And that's just kind of dragging on because we have an unreliable power source here. And thankfully, Rosie is here most of the time. We do have some backwater stockpiling. So I think what I'm going to do is, while we wait for those metal blocks to finish, I'm going to throw in some storage, a medium tank up here. So he is not doing nothing most of the day. We do have a river here. We might be able to tap into this and connect it to the windmill supply if we were to dam up a little bit of this supply in here. So for example, if we put in a few dams or a few levees and we increase the height of this, we could put a water wheel right up in here. Now it's only 3 wide, so we can only get 1 water wheel, but we could potentially narrow it and get like a lot of power just from it, or at least be reliable. So I'm thinking something relatively simple like that. So we can narrow the river, and then we can put a water wheel like right in here. And that water wheel would fit right there, and we could connect it. And in the meantime, the other thing we can do, I hate doing this, but we can put a manual hamster wheel on there just to kind of get it going. At least this will keep this running every day, even if slowly. And I think we need a new name for this guy working in here. So since our first manual runner is Jebediah, I think in the Kerbal Space Program Legacy, we should name this guy Bob Kerman. So Bob Kerman, you can be our second manual walker. And how are we doing on our explosives factory? Inching along. We've got everything except for metal blocks, and we need 15 more. And this should help, because I've been finding half of the days this smelter is not running because the wind power was so unreliable. Speaking of which, it just stopped. So I can see here, this guy, he's still running, so this guy is still working, albeit inefficiently, but at least it's getting a little bit of power in there. And to help with these long building delays, I think I'm gonna have to cave in and finally get a builder's hut. We have a lot of children who are about to become adults, so I think we can deal with it. Excellent. And that seemed to help. We've got our medium tank filled, and we got some bad water being populated. So this guy can just walk over and place it in there. We still have our smelter going. And we only need 9 more metal blocks for our dynamite. Make that 8. And we've got another drought coming in soon. Like the last one, I don't think this one is going to be a problem, but I do have a feeling that in the next couple of days, we are finally going to finish this explosive factory. We only need 6 more metal blocks, and that's going to be here before we know it. And done. We have our explosive factory. And all we need is 5 bad water to 1 dynamite. And we should have a good stockpile of bad water here. We've got 109. So let's get our first guy in here. And I think he needs a new name. His name is going to be Mr. Boom. Mr. Boom is responsible for making our dynamite. And just like the other building, I want this one prioritized by the haulers. I don't want Mr. Boom having to walk back and forth. I want him on dynamite duty all the time. And let's see, almost there. This is our first stick of dynamite. And made. Okay, now, I don't think we can end this episode without actually using some of this dynamite. So let's go ahead and blow something up. Let's try this. We're gonna go ahead and destroy that, because I think we could use this for more buildings down here. Lay down 2 sticks and light them up. And with that, I think I'm going to end the episode there. I think we accomplished quite a bit. We got our new production of dynamite up and running. We've got some new metal being smelted, as well as some bad water being produced. And we expanded our population quite a bit. So I think that's going to put us in a good spot for the next episode, where I think we can start using this holy dynamite that we've unlocked, building up a solution to a bad tide. I hope you enjoyed this episode. As always, take care, and I hope to catch you next time.